and members of this committee, and I appreciate you. Thank you, Assemblymember Caloza. Well, I'll try to multitask here as I read through my statement. I know that time is important, so I'll just begin. So Chairman Hyrabedian and members of the Legislature, Consul General, distinguished panelists and guests, thank you for convening this hearing and giving the city of Glendale an opportunity to participate. I want to begin with a simple proposition, and that is following. California should not think of its relationship with Armenia as a distant foreign policy concern. It should think of Armenia as an economic, cultural, democratic, and strategic partner, and it should recognize Glendale as a natural gateway for that partnership. When you walk anywhere in the city of Glendale, roughly 1 in 3 people you pass probably traces their roots to some Armenian diasporan community or Armenia itself. Glendale, as we have heard, is home to about 70,000 Armenian Americans, the largest concentration in any city in the United States, and California is home to nearly over 250,000 Armenians. The Armenian American story is one of survival and renewal. Armenians arrived after the genocide and after various conflicts in the Middle East pushed them out of diasporan communities, and of course after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And despite hardships and discrimination, they built businesses, raised families, and strengthened their communities. And here in this photo, you can see Armenian immigrants at the early turn of the last century who were in the agricultural industry. In Fresno, here they are harvesting grapes. Today, Armenian Americans are an integral part of California's economy and civic life, leading businesses, serving as professionals and public servants, and sustaining a vibrant network of schools, churches, and cultural institutions. It is one of California's greatest community assets to have a vibrant diasporan community. And there's no better example of this immigrant community's successes than ServiceTitan, founded by Vahek Kuzoyan, who's joining us, and Aram Atesian, 2 sons of tradesmen who built technology to serve people like their fathers and who built it in Glendale. It has become a major technological company success, and you will hear Vahek's story directly from him, so I will not tell it for him. But their experience makes my central point. The relationship between California and Armenia is not a directional commitment. It is a genuine partnership. Capital, talent, and ideas move both ways. Companies that are founded by Armenian Americans here create jobs in America as well as in Armenia. Engineers in Armenia help California companies compete globally. And this is not aid, it is trade, investment, and innovation. Armenia has one of the most significant diaspora networks of any small nation, and California holds the largest, most economically capable concentration of that diaspora in the country. And that is a strategic advantage we need to take advantage of. But an advantage is only valuable when it's intentionally developed. So Glendale has already begun building the foundation for this growth. I want to recognize leaders who represented us in the legislature before, such as State Senator Portantino, now Congresswoman Laura Friedman, and of course many leaders of Armenian heritage like Assembly members Najarian and Achajian, who came before and laid the foundations for work in cooperation with individuals such as Governors Jerry Brown, Governor Newsom, and many other friends and allies who continue through your leadership to support and help the Armenian community get integrated, grow, and succeed. Strengthening our community means investing in lasting institutions, not simply passing resolutions. And the Armenian American Museum is one such example of this in Glendale. The Armenian American Museum is rising in the heart of Glendale, the first major institution of its kind in California, dedicated to the history, culture, and survival and contributions of Armenian Americans. But this is not only an Armenian museum, it is a California museum in reality, telling the story of refugees becoming neighbors, survivors, raising generations of doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, and civic leaders who strengthen our great state. The museum will anchor a growing cultural district near the Central Library in Glendale. I know many of you have visited this site. The museum, it's next to the Museum of Neon Art. It will educate visitors about the genocide, about genocide prevention, about immigration and civic participation, and generate tourism in our city center as well as the surrounding region. The state has already made a significant investment. We ask that the legislature and governor remain partners until the statewide institution is fully completed. Glendale's cultural role is also shows in smaller ways. From September 4th through the 7th of this year, we will again host the 2026 Southern California Open Chess Grand Prix, one of California's largest chess tournaments. Now, to some, chess may be a game, but for Armenians, it is more than that. It represents patience, discipline, strategy, and thinking several moves ahead. Armenia has produced grandmasters and championship teams far beyond what its size would predict, and chess holds a central place in its education. Those same traits, strategy, resilience, long-term thinking have helped Armenian Americans succeed in business and public life. And this tournament is one more example of how culture, education, tourism, and economic activity come together in Glendale. Our connection to Armenia is reinforced through sister city relationships, such as with Gyumri, Armenia's second largest city, Gapan in the south, and our friendship city partnership with Yerevan's Gentron district. These are not ceremonial plaques on walls. They are vehicles for student exchanges, professional visits, government collaboration, and business development. We have hosted delegations to our city from these areas, and we have also worked with entrepreneurs on infrastructure, technology, and public safety and economic development. We have welcomed young people from Armenia into our police stations, fire facilities, and council chambers to see how local democracy works. Local government can practice meaningful diplomacy, and Glendale does it every day. And I should mention that Glendale also had signed a sister city relationship document with the city of Marduni in the Republic of Artsakh, also known to some as Nagorno-Karabakh. Unfortunately, after 2023, the Armenian population of that city was wiped out and ethnically cleansed, and the mayor of Marduni, Aznavur Sargyan, was killed while defending the city from invading Azerbaijani military forces. Armenia is landlocked, but it must never be isolated economically, technologically, or intellectually. Our state can help by expanding partnerships in trade, education, technology, renewable energy, and healthcare, building the connections that allow opportunity and prosperity to grow. California's leaders also you all play a diplomatic role when you visit Armenia. The delegation demonstrates that the relationship is institutional, not merely ceremonial. It tells the Armenian people they are seen, that they are not alone, and that the largest state in the country considers their future important. That reassurance cannot be substituted for federal policy, but it still matters. It builds confidence, encourages investment, and signals that intimidation by some neighboring aggressors will not erase Armenia from the attention of the democratic world. We cannot discuss Armenia's economic future, however, without acknowledging the realities around it. Many of you know that 100,000 Armenians were forcibly displaced from Artsakh in 2023 after a blockade and military attacks. Many people lost homes, churches, cultural institutions, and land that was inhabited by Armenians for generations, over a millennia. Many of those families now are in places outside of their ancestral homes, and many have familial connections in Glendale. For them, Artsakh is not an abstract policy issue. It is reviving century-old traumas. Armenian prisoners and detainees also remain in Azerbaijani custody, and their release must remain a concern for leaders who believe in human rights and a durable peace. Notable humanitarians, like the founder of the Aurora Peace Prize for Human Rights, Ruben Vartanyan, among them. A peaceful, integrated region would benefit everyone, but peace must be credible, reciprocal, and grounded in human rights, not merely imposed on the more vulnerable party. California cannot negotiate a peace agreement. I understand that. We understand that. But it can use its voice, its economic influence, and its congressional delegations and other resources to insist that Armenians not be excluded from the protections we defend everywhere else as Americans. We must, just as California restricted travel to public servants to states that did not reflect the same values of our great state here, it should consider to restrict travel to countries like Azerbaijan, as long as they are actively denying the Armenian genocide and holding Armenians as hostage. Our commitment to Armenia must include a commitment to its democratic development. Strong economies and strong democracies both depend on independent institutions, transparent laws, and an impartial judiciary, and the freedom to criticize governments without fear. Supporting Armenia does not require silence when democratic institutions, political opposition, or religious freedom raise legitimate concerns. Honest criticism is an expression of commitment, not disloyalty, and the Armenian diaspora wants an Armenia that is secure, democratic, and a strong partner of the United States and California, goals that ultimately reinforce one another. There is one more issue that must become part of California's agenda. Our state has long understood that discrimination creates lasting economic barriers, which is why it has built programs to increase participation by minority-owned and disadvantaged businesses. But Armenian-owned businesses too often fall outside the categories these programs use, treated as part of a broad white classification despite the distinct ethnic identity and a documented history of discrimination. That is not theoretical. You know that in 2023, and I know many of you spoke out and we appreciate it, that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that Citibank intentionally and illegally discriminated against Armenian Americans for credit applications, targeting surnames ending in IAN and YAN, and treating residents in Glendale as a proxy for fraud risk. Citibank was ordered to pay $25.9 million. One of the nation's largest banks treated an Armenian surname as a warning sign, ethnic discrimination with direct economic consequences for who gets credit, who can grow and expand their businesses, who they can hire, and who fails. More recently, and thank you for your leadership in speaking out on this, Chairman Hayrbedian, Dr. Mehmet Oz, as administrator of the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, released a video on alleged healthcare fraud in Los Angeles. Fraud should be investigated, we all agree, but rather than name specific defendants, he invoked, quote, Russian Armenian mafia, highlighting Armenian language signage, and filmed in front of an Armenian-owned bakery never accused of anything, which then reportedly lost roughly 30% in sales. Governor Newsom filed a civil rights complaint, and I thank him for it. And there is a fundamental difference between investigating fraud and racializing it. Armenian lettering on a storefront is not evidence. A surname is not probable cause. And California must reject that playbook, whichever community is targeted. These incidents are exactly why our supplier diversity policies in the state must be examined. Armenian Americans are recognized as a distinct community when they are targeted for discrimination. They should not become invisible when the state designs remedies. I would like to ask legislature to work with the Department of General Services, the Public Utilities Commission, GoBiz, Caltrans, everyone else, and identify the changes needed to qualify Armenian-owned businesses, and so they are not categorically excluded. This is not a request for contracts to go to unqualified companies. It is a request for equal access tools California has already created. The state should investigate the disparity, establish the record, and where evidence supports it, act. Chairman Hayrbedian and members, I respectfully ask the legislature to partner with Glendale in several specific ways to help us complete investments in places like the Armenian American Museum, continue investing in Glendale's technology and innovation economy, building on the GoBiz seed funding to expand our incubator and startup programs, and establish more formal California-Armenia trade and innovation strategy, an institutional home, bringing together GoBiz, our universities and educational institutions, venture capital, Armenian technology companies, and cities like ours. And lastly, I'd like to also direct appropriate agencies to examine the exclusion of Armenian-owned businesses from supplier diversity programs, continue legislative delegations and official visits to Armenia, expand educational and professional exchanges between our universities and colleges and California businesses. And seventh, continue using California's moral and political voice in support of the Armenian people, advocating for the release of prisoners, supporting displaced Artsakh Armenians, opposing ethnic cleansing and cultural destruction, and promoting peace that protects Armenia's sovereignty and security. In closing, I would like to once again thank everyone for hearing and reaffirming what my statement has hopefully made very clear today, that California has already benefited enormously from the Armenian American community. Now we have the opportunity to turn that historic relationship into something much greater. Glendale is ready to help lead it. We have the people, we have the businesses, we have the chambers of commerce and the community organizations and civic groups, the institutions, the museum hopefully soon, and the beginnings of a technology center right here where the San Fernando and San Gabriel valleys meet. And we have the sister city relationship, along with decades and upon decades of evidence of what immigrants help bring to this state. What we need is a sustained partnership, and we know we have that with all of your leadership. We will hopefully finish this museum, grow this sector of technology, open procurement opportunities, and make sure that Armenia is connected to California and through California to the rest of the world. And when Armenian Americans face discrimination, profiling, or collective suspicion, we need our elected representatives and the state of California to say plainly that they will receive the same protection, dignity, and opportunity promised to every other community. And for the Republic of Armenia, it may be landlocked, but through California and through Glendale, it does not have to be isolated. The bridge already exists. It was built by survivors, immigrants, entrepreneurs, students, and families over more than a century. Our task now is to strengthen it, to complete it, and to make sure it carries opportunity in both directions for generations to come. Thank you for your time, and I'm ready to answer any of your questions.